Imagine journeying back in time, over 3,000 years, to a world shrouded in the emerald green canopy of a vast, untamed jungle. This is Mesoamerica, a land of roaring jaguars, vibrant macaws, and a silence so deep it feels like the beginning of time itself. It is here, in these dense forests and fertile lowlands, that the seeds of one of history's most enigmatic and brilliant civilizations were sown. This is the story of the Maya, but not the one you might know. This is the dawn of kings, the very beginning, long before the famous temples of Tikal or Chichen Itza pierced the sky. Our journey starts in the preclassic period. Before the grand stone cities, there were humble villages, scattered clearings in the endless jungle. The earliest Maya were pioneers, learning to read the rhythms of the land. Their greatest discovery? The domestication of maize. This wasn't just a crop. It was the grain of the gods, the very substance from which the Maya believed humanity was formed. Maize was life. It allowed populations to grow, communities to settle, and time to be spent on things other than the daily search for food. With full bellies and a revolutionary food source, these small hamlets began to transform. They developed unique pottery styles, intricate weaving techniques, and spiritual traditions that connected them to the cosmos and the earth. Slowly but surely, a distinct cultural identity began to crystallize under the jungle canopy. As centuries passed, some of these villages didn't just grow, they exploded. The era of the first cities had arrived, and they were colossal. Forget what you think you know about the Maya timeline, because long before the classic Golden Age, giants walked this land. We're talking about cities like Nakbi, and most awe-inspiring of all, El Mirador. Located deep in the Petén Basin of modern-day Guatemala, El Mirador was a metropolis on a scale that defies belief for its time. We're talking about a city that, at its height around 150 BC, may have been home to over 100,000 people. Getting there today is still an epic multi-day trek through the jungle, which makes its construction all the more mind-boggling. The heart of El Mirador was dominated by two massive pyramid complexes, La Danta and El Tiger. La Danta, in particular, is a contender for one of the largest pyramids in the world by total volume. It's not a single pyramid, but a man-made mountain, a vast platform supporting a series of temples and smaller structures, rising over 230 feet high. Imagine the sheer human effort. Tens of thousands of people working with stone tools and baskets, moving millions of cubic feet of earth and rock to sculpt the very landscape into a declaration of power and faith. These weren't just buildings, they were statements. They announced that the Maya were here, that they were a force to be reckoned with, and that their connection to the gods was monumental. El Mirador was the first great superpower of the Maya world, a testament to their incredible organizational skills and ambition, all flourishing 1,000 years before the height of Rome. But what drove this incredible explosion of culture and construction? It was the birth of a powerful idea, an ideology that would define the Maya for millennia, the concept of Keyul Agyo, or the divine king. Rulers were no longer just chieftains or village elders. They were seen as living conduits to the supernatural world. They were shaman lords, intermediaries who could speak with the gods, command the rains, and ensure the cosmic order. Their authority was absolute because it was divine. This belief system was the engine that powered the civilization. It was for these divine kings that the great pyramids were built, serving as both tombs and throne stairways to the heavens, from which the ruler could preside over both the living and the spiritual realms. This ideology provided the social glue and the driving purpose for these massive collective projects. And to solidify their divine right to rule, the Maya developed two of their most famous intellectual tools, writing and a profound understanding of time. The preclassic period saw the emergence of the first hieroglyphs. Carved onto stone stele and painted on pottery, these early scripts recorded the names of kings, the dates of their births, their accession to the throne, and their great deeds. This was more than just record-keeping. It was propaganda carved in stone. It was a way to make a king's legacy permanent, to prove his lineage and his divine mandate to future generations. Writing was power. It allowed the elite to control the narrative of history itself. Alongside writing came their obsession with time. The Maya didn't just track time. They revered it. They developed multiple interlocking calendars of breathtaking complexity, including the 260-day sacred calendar and the 365-day solar calendar. For them, time was not a linear progression, but a cyclical, living entity. Each day had its own spiritual energy, its own divine patrons. Understanding these cycles was crucial for everything, from planting maize to waging war to performing the correct rituals. This sophisticated grasp of astronomy and mathematics allowed them to predict celestial events like eclipses and track the movements of planets with incredible accuracy. This knowledge was another source of the king's power. By understanding the calendar, he could demonstrate his alignment with the cosmos, proving to his people that he was indeed in tune with the will of the gods. So as we stand at the end of this first chapter, the preclassic period, the stage is set. The jungle has given rise to monumental cities. The people have been bound together by the cultivation of maize and the ideology of divine kingship. The intellectual tools of writing and calendrics are in place. The Maya are not yet at their famous classic peak, but the foundation has been laid, and it is a foundation of giants. The legacy of El Mirador proves that greatness was in their blood from the very beginning. The dawn of kings has passed, and the first golden light of the classic period is about to break over the horizon, promising even greater wonders to come. We step into their golden age, the classic period. Get ready, because this is where the story truly explodes with drama, art, and innovation. From about 250 to 900 AD, the Maya world wasn't a single unified empire. Instead, imagine a landscape dotted with dozens of powerful, independent city-states, each a vibrant hub of culture and ambition. This era was the absolute peak of Maya civilization, a time when their society reached its most complex and brilliant form. Think of it like the city-states of ancient Greece or Renaissance Italy. These weren't just cities, they were kingdoms. Each was ruled by a divine king, a kagol, a jah, or holy lord, who acted as the intermediary between the people and the gods. The plazas and pyramids we see today were the stages for grand ceremonies, and the fate of the kingdom rested on the king's shoulders. At the heart of this period was an epic rivalry, a superpower showdown that shaped the Maya world for centuries. On one side, we have the mighty city of Tikal in modern-day Guatemala. Its emblem was the jaguar, a symbol of its fierce power and ambition. Tikal's rulers built staggering pyramids that pierced the jungle canopy, reaching towards the heavens as a testament to their might. But every great power has a rival. To the north, in what is now Mexico, lay the serpent kingdom of Calakmul. Represented by the powerful snake, Calakmul was the head of a massive political network, a web of alliances designed to encircle and contain its great rival, Tikal. These two titans, the jaguar and the snake, were locked in a cosmic struggle for supremacy. This wasn't just a cold war. It was a series of intense conflicts, a chess game played with armies, alliances, and political marriages. A city-state's allegiance could shift, tipping the balance of power overnight. This constant competition fueled an incredible boom in construction. To prove their legitimacy and power, kings from both sides and their allied cities built bigger and more magnificent temples, palaces, and ball courts. The very stones of these cities tell a story of rivalry and one-upmanship. It was a golden age forged in the fires of conflict. But the classic period wasn't just about war. It was also an unparalleled era of artistic and intellectual achievement. Far from the central conflict, nestled in the lush hills of Chiapas, Mexico, the city of Palenque emerged as a jewel of Maya art, Here, the architecture was different, more elegant, with intricate roof combs and delicate stucco reliefs. The story of Palenque is inseparable from its greatest ruler, Kainich Janab Pakal, or Pakal the Great. He ascended to the throne as a boy and ruled for an astonishing 68 years, overseeing Palenque's transformation into a major center of art and culture. His reign was a testament to stability and prosperity. Pakal's most enduring legacy is his own tomb, the Temple of the Inscriptions. Hidden deep within the pyramid, his sarcophagus was discovered in 1952, one of the most significant archaeological finds of the 20th century. The lid of the sarcophagus is a masterpiece of Maya art, depicting Pakal at the moment of his death, falling into the jaws of the underworld, but also poised for rebirth, like the sun. It's a powerful statement about the Maya concept of life, death, and resurrection. Meanwhile, further south in modern-day Honduras, the city of Copan became the Paris of the Maya world, renowned for its sculpture. The rulers of Copan commissioned incredibly detailed and three-dimensional stelae, carved stone monuments that were essentially public records of their history and lineage. The artists of Copan were masters of their craft. Unlike the flatter reliefs seen in other cities, their sculptures are almost fully in the round, bursting with life and intricate detail. The hieroglyphic stairway at Copan is a marvel, a massive staircase adorned with over 2,000 individual glyphs. It's the longest known Maya text, a complete history of the city's royal dynasty, literally written in stone for all to see. And that brings us to one of the most important achievements of the classic period, the perfection of the Maya writing system. For centuries, scholars thought the intricate glyphs were merely religious or astronomical symbols. But thanks to decades of painstaking decipherment, we now know that this was a true functional writing system, capable of expressing any thought or idea in their spoken language. This was a game changer. Suddenly, the Maya could write their own history. The stelae weren't just portraits of kings. They were historical documents. They recorded birth dates, accession to the throne, marriages, battles won, and rituals performed. For the first time, we weren't just guessing about their history. We could read it in their own words. The silent stones began to speak, telling us the names of kings and queens, the dates of epic battles, and the complex web of diplomacy that connected the city-states. So, the classic period gives us this vibrant, complex picture, a world of rival kingdoms locked in a struggle for power, but also a world of breathtaking artistic beauty in cities like Palenque and Copan, a world where kings built monuments to their own glory, and in doing so, sponsored an age of incredible creativity. And most importantly, a world where the Maya themselves recorded their own story, leaving behind a legacy written in stone that we are still uncovering today. It was a brilliant, flourishing era. But as with all golden ages, it couldn't last forever. What happened next? How could these magnificent cities, bustling with people and power, suddenly fall silent? That is the great mystery we will tackle in Part 3, the Maya collapse. We're venturing into a realm where the Maya truly distinguished themselves from every other civilization of their time, their incredible intellectual universe. Let's delve into the cosmos and the calendar. When we think of the Maya, we often picture towering pyramids engulfed by the jungle. But their greatest monuments were not built of stone. They were built of ideas. The Maya were master astronomers, mathematicians, and keepers of time, and their achievements in these fields are nothing short of breathtaking. At the heart of their worldview was a profound obsession with time. For the Maya, time wasn't just a linear progression from past to future. It was a cyclical, sacred force, a divine dance of celestial bodies that dictated every aspect of life, from when to plant corn to when to go to war. To navigate this cosmic rhythm, they developed not one, but multiple calendar systems of astounding complexity and accuracy. First, there was the Chu-Kan, the 260-day sacred calendar. Think of it as the Maya's spiritual almanac. It was formed by the interplay of 20 named days with 13 numbers. Each day had a unique combination, like 4 ahau, or 1 imix, and each combination carried its own specific energy and prophecy. This calendar governed religious ceremonies, divination, and determined the fate of individuals from the moment they were born. The 260-day cycle was the spiritual pulse of Maya society, connecting every person directly to the sacred energies of the cosmos. Running parallel to the Zocan was the Hab, a 365-day solar calendar that will feel more familiar to us. It was composed of 18 months of 20 days each, which adds up to 360 days. What about the remaining 5? The Maya accounted for them with a special 5-day period at the end of the year called the Wabe. This was a liminal, dangerous time, a moment when the portals between the mortal world and the supernatural realm were thought to be wide open. People stayed home, avoided major activities, and performed rituals to ward off malevolent spirits. The Hab was the civil calendar, essential for agriculture and tracking the seasons, ensuring the stability and sustenance of their great cities. Now, here's where it gets even more brilliant. The Maya wove these two calendars together to create what we call the calendar round. Imagine 2 gears, one with 260 teeth and one with 365, turning together. It takes exactly 52 years for them to return to their starting position. This 52-year cycle was a hugely significant block of time for the Maya, roughly equivalent to a generation. The end of a calendar round was a time for monumental religious ceremonies, a moment of societal renewal and rededication to the gods. But the Maya's conception of time didn't stop there. They wanted to place their history, their dynasties, and their triumphs within an even grander, almost eternal timeline. For this, they created the legendary long count calendar. This is the system that famously led to all the end of the world speculation back in 2012. The long count tracks time in a linear fashion, starting from a mythical creation date in what we would call August 3114 BCE. It allowed Maya scribes and kings to record events with pinpoint precision across immense spans of history. When a king dedicated a temple or won a battle, he wouldn't just say it happened on a certain day. He would inscribe its exact long count date, anchoring that moment into the vast, unfolding tapestry of cosmic time. It was a way of saying, what we do here matters not just for today, but for eternity. It connected the reign of a mortal king to the divine actions of the gods at the dawn of creation. To manage such complex calendrical systems, the Maya needed a sophisticated mathematical toolkit, and they did not disappoint. They developed a vigesimal, or base 20, numeral system. But their most revolutionary innovation, one that puts them in a league of their own, was the independent development of the concept of zero. Represented by a stylized shell glyph, the Maya use of zero as a placeholder was a mathematical leap that European mathematicians wouldn't fully embrace for another 1,000 years. This single concept allowed them to calculate vast numbers and record astronomical data with unparalleled accuracy. And that brings us to the stars. The Maya temple was not just a place of worship, it was an observatory. Their religion was inextricably linked with astronomy. Priests were sky watchers, meticulously charting the movements of the sun, the moon, the planets, and the stars. Their cities were often aligned with key celestial events. The Pyramid of El Castillo at Chichen Itza, for example, is famous for the serpent of light that descends its staircase during the spring and autumn equinoxes, a stunning fusion of architecture, astronomy, and religious symbolism. The gods themselves were celestial bodies. The sun and moon were primary deities, their eternal chase across the sky forming the basis of countless myths. But the Maya paid special attention to the planet Venus. They tracked its cycle as the morning and fine evening star with astonishing precision, calculating its synodic period at 584 days, incredibly close to the modern value of 583.92. The movements of Venus were associated with warfare and major state events, and its appearance could signal the auspicious time to launch a military campaign. Even the famous Maya ball game, the pits, was more than just a sport. It was a ritual reenactment of cosmic battles from their creation mythology, symbolizing the struggle between day and night, life and death. The ball itself often represented the sun, and its movement across the court mirrored the sun's journey through the heavens and the underworld. Playing the game was a sacred act, a way to maintain the balance of the cosmos. From their multi-layered calendars and revolutionary mathematics to their star-aligned cities, the Maya saw no separation between the heavens and the earth. Their intellectual world was a magnificent synthesis of science and spirituality, where every number had a soul and every star told a story. They weren't just living on the land. They were living within a cosmos, actively participating in its grand cyclical drama. The depth of this intellectual and spiritual framework is what makes the Maya so endlessly fascinating. Their legacy isn't just in the ruins they left behind, but in the profound way they sought to understand their place in the universe. We've marveled at their towering pyramids, deciphered their complex hieroglyphs, and stood in awe of their astronomical prowess. But now we arrive at the civilization's greatest mystery, a chapter shrouded in silence and speculation, the Great Collapse. Imagine this. It's around 800 AD, the southern lowlands are bustling. Cities like Tikal, Calakmul, and Palenque are at their zenith, vibrant centers of power, art, and commerce. Kings commission towering stelae, massive temples pierce the sky, and hundreds of thousands of people call these metropolises home. It is, by all accounts, a golden age. Then, something changes. A profound silence begins to fall across the landscape. The ceaseless sound of hammers and chisels carving monuments fades away. The grand construction projects, the very heartbeat of royal power, grind to a halt. The last dated monuments are erected, and then, nothing. The stone carvers lay down their tools, and the historical record, so meticulously kept for centuries, goes dark. Over the next 150 years, from roughly 800 to 950 AD, these magnificent cities experience a catastrophic decline. The once bustling plazas grow quiet, markets empty, and the great causeways that connected these urban centers fall into disuse. Slowly but surely, the people begin to leave. The grand palaces are abandoned, the ceremonial centers deserted. The jungle, always waiting at the edges, begins its patient reclamation. Vines snake over intricate carvings, tree roots fracture plazas, and the roars of howler monkeys replace the sounds of human life. The great cities of the south are swallowed by the green tide, becoming the lost ruins that would mystify explorers a millennium later. So, what happened? How could one of the world's most advanced civilizations simply vanish from its heartland? This is the question that has haunted archaeologists and historians for over a century. There's no single, simple answer, no stone tablet that reads, "We left because ... double quotes." Instead, we have a complex puzzle, and researchers have pieced together a compelling, multifaceted picture of what likely transpired. It wasn't a single event, but a perfect storm of devastating factors. One of the leading theories points to the sky, or rather, the lack of what fell from it. Climate scientists, by studying sediment cores from lakes and stalagmites from caves, have discovered evidence of a series of severe, prolonged droughts that struck the region during this exact period. The Maya were brilliant water managers, building vast reservoirs and canal systems. But even their sophisticated engineering may have been no match for decades-long periods of drastically reduced rainfall. Imagine the impact. Crop failures would lead to widespread famine. Malnutrition would make the population more susceptible to disease. The reservoirs would dry up, and the very foundation of life in these dense urban centers would crumble. The kings, whose authority was deeply tied to their perceived ability to communicate with the gods and ensure agricultural prosperity, would have lost all credibility. How can you be a divine ruler when you can't make it rain? This ecological crisis was likely exacerbated by another factor: endemic warfare. As resources grew scarce, competition between the city-states would have intensified dramatically. We see evidence of this in the final phase of construction. In some cities, defensive walls are hastily erected, a feature largely absent in earlier, more confident times. The art shifts too, with more depictions of battle, captives, and sacrifice. Instead of uniting to face the environmental crisis, the Maya city-states may have turned on each other in a desperate struggle for survival. This constant conflict would have drained resources, disrupted trade routes, and displaced populations, further destabilizing an already fragile society. It's a vicious cycle. Drought leads to conflict, and conflict makes it impossible to deal with the effects of the drought. And then there's the environmental degradation caused by the Maya themselves. To build their monumental cities and feed a massive population, they cleared vast swaths of jungle. This deforestation would have had serious consequences. It leads to soil erosion, reducing the fertility of their farmlands. It also can affect local rainfall patterns, potentially making the droughts even worse. In their success, the Maya may have inadvertently sown the seeds of their own decline, pushing their environment to a tipping point from which it could not recover. So, we have a devastating combination: climate change in the form of crippling droughts, intense internal warfare over dwindling resources, and long-term environmental damage. It's a cascade of failure where each problem amplifies the others. There was no single killer, but a lethal synergy of crises that brought the southern civilization to its knees. But here is the most crucial point, a detail that is so often lost in the dramatic retelling of the collapse. This was not the end of the Maya people. It's an incredible testament to their resilience. While the southern cities were being reclaimed by the jungle, Maya civilization was undergoing a dramatic shift. Populations migrated north to the Yucatan Peninsula. Here, new cities like Chichen Itza and Uxmal rose to prominence. They adapted their architecture and agriculture to the different environment of the north. Maya culture didn't die. It relocated and transformed. The story of the collapse isn't one of a mysterious disappearance, but of a profound societal transformation and migration in the face of an existential crisis. The southern cities fell silent, but the Maya people, their language and their culture endured, evolving and adapting as they had for millennia. This collapse marked the end of an era, the closing of the classic period, but it was also the beginning of a new chapter in the long and incredible story of the Maya. The lessons from the classic Maya collapse resonate powerfully with us today, serving as a sobering reminder of how fragile even the most sophisticated societies can be in the face of environmental change and internal conflict. We witnessed the mysterious decline of the great southern cities, a chapter that left many wondering, what happened next? Well, the story of the Maya is far from over. In fact, it's about to enter a vibrant new phase. So grab your explorer's hat, because today we're heading north to witness the spectacular renaissance of the Maya world. As the southern lowlands fell silent, a powerful new energy was rising in the sun-drenched plains of the northern Yucatan Peninsula. This wasn't an ending. It was a relocation, a transformation. The torch of Maya civilization wasn't extinguished. It was passed northward, where it would burn brighter than ever before in what we call the post-classic period. Forget the images of abandoned ruins overgrown by jungle. Instead, picture bustling new metropolises, a fusion of cultures, and a new golden age. The first city we absolutely have to talk about is the one and only Chichen Itza. Even if you've only heard of one Maya city, it's probably this one, and for good reason. Chichen Itza wasn't just a city, it was a phenomenon. Emerging around the 9th century, it quickly became the undisputed powerhouse of the Yucatan, a sprawling urban center that drew people, goods, and ideas from all over Mesoamerica. Its name means at the mouth of the well of the Itza, hinting at its control over vital water sources, especially the massive sacred cenote, a natural well believed to be a gateway to the underworld. Imagine walking through its grand plazas. You'd see merchants from distant lands trading obsidian, turquoise, and brilliant macaw feathers. You'd hear dozens of dialects spoken in the marketplace. And towering over everything, you'd see architectural wonders that still leave us breathless today. This was a cosmopolitan city, a melting pot of cultures, and the epicenter of a new Maya era. But what made Chichen Itza and the Northern Renaissance so unique was a fascinating cultural blend. During this period, we see a powerful influence from central Mexico, specifically from the Toltec people. This wasn't a conquest in the traditional sense, but more of a cultural and political fusion. Think of it as two powerful traditions meeting and creating something entirely new and dynamic. This blend is most famously symbolized by the deity Kukulkan. In the south, the classic Maya worshipped a vision serpent, but in the north, this figure merges with the powerful central Mexican god Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. Kukulkan became a supreme deity, a symbol of this new integrated worldview. And there is no greater tribute to him than the magnificent temple at Chichen Itza, often called El Castillo. This step pyramid is a masterpiece of engineering and astronomy. With 365 steps, representing the solar year and its precise alignment to cast a serpent-like shadow during the equinoxes, it's a living calendar in stone. It perfectly embodies this new era, classic Maya astronomical genius fused with the grand militant style of the Toltecs. The art and architecture of this period are filled with new motifs: warriors, eagles, jaguars, and of course, the ubiquitous feathered serpent, carved into columns and balustrades everywhere you look. It's a bold, powerful style that speaks of a new kind of society, one that valued both cosmic knowledge and military might. Chichen Itza's reign was glorious, but like all great powers, its dominance eventually waned around the 13th century. But again, this was not the end. As Chichen Itza's influence faded, another city rose to take its place, Mayapan. If Chichen Itza was the grand cosmopolitan capital, Mayapan was its more compact and fortified successor. It became the last great unified capital of the Maya world before the arrival of the Spanish. Mayapan was a walled city, which tells us something about the political climate of the time. The era of grand open cities was giving way to a more defensive posture. Inside its walls, an estimated 12,000 people lived in a dense urban environment. Power was centralized under the Kokon dynasty, who ruled over a confederation of northern provinces. While its architecture intentionally mimicked the famous buildings of Chichen Itza, like its own smaller version of the Temple of Kukulkan, it was on a much less grandiose scale. The focus here was less on monumental art and more on practical governance and control. For over 200 years, Mayapan was the political and cultural heart of the Yucatan. It maintained extensive trade networks, stretching down to Honduras and across the Gulf of Mexico. Life within its walls was a continuation of ancient Maya traditions, but adapted to this new, more politically fragmented world. They continued to write in glyphs, to track the stars with incredible accuracy, and to observe the sacred rituals that had defined their ancestors for millennia. Mayapan represents the resilience of Maya culture, its ability to adapt and reorganize in the face of change. But this final era of unity was not to last. Around the year 1441, a successful revolt led by a rival lineage, the Zhou, brought down the Kokon rulers and led to the violent abandonment of Mayapan. The great capital was sacked and burned, and the political unity it had enforced for 2 centuries shattered. The northern Yucatan splintered into about 16 rival city-states, each vying for power. This political fragmentation is the state in which the Maya world found itself when the first Spanish ships appeared on the horizon in the early 16th century. There was no single unified empire to confront, but a patchwork of proud, independent kingdoms. This, in a way, made the Spanish conquest a long drawn-out and incredibly difficult affair that would last for nearly 170 years. The Maya, even when politically divided, were never easily conquered. So the post-classic period in the north is a story of incredible highs and dramatic lows. It's a tale of rebirth in cities like Chichen Itza, of cultural fusion that created breathtaking art, of political consolidation under Maya pen, and finally, of fragmentation that set the stage for the longest resistance to European colonization in the Americas. It proves once and for all that the Maya civilization never truly collapsed. It transformed, it adapted, and it endured. The fascinating post-classic period, a time of political shifts and cultural resilience. But as the 15th century drew to a close, a storm was gathering far across the Atlantic, one that would irrevocably alter the destiny of the Maya and all the peoples of the Americas. Today, in Part 6, we delve into the story of the Spanish conquest, a long, brutal, and complex chapter of resistance and tragedy. When the first Spanish ships arrived on the shores of the Yucatan Peninsula in the early 16th century, they didn't find a single unified empire like the Aztec or the Inca. Instead, they encountered a mosaic of dozens of independent Maya kingdoms, or ****. Each had its own ruler, its own army, and its own political agenda. This fragmentation, which had defined Maya politics for centuries, would ironically become both their greatest weakness and their most enduring strength in the face of invasion. Unlike the swift, shocking fall of Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital, the conquest of the Maya was not a single event. It was a grueling, drawn-out war of attrition that would last for nearly 170 years. The Spanish, armed with steel swords, crossbows, firearms, and cavalry, possessed a significant military advantage. Horses and war dogs, creatures never before seen in the Americas, struck terror into the hearts of Maya warriors. But the Maya were fighting on their home turf. They knew the dense jungles, the winding rivers, and the strategic sinkholes, or cenotes that provided the only sources of fresh water in the arid northern lowlands. The initial Spanish attempts at conquest were met with fierce resistance. Expeditions led by figures like Francisco de Montejo and his son were repeatedly pushed back by united Maya forces. The Maya learned quickly, adapting their tactics to counter the Spanish threat. They used ambushes in the dense jungle, dug pit traps for the cavalry, and developed longer lances to combat horsemen. They were not a people who would simply lay down their arms. They fought with a desperate bravery to defend their homes, their families, and their way of life. However, the greatest and most insidious weapon the Spanish brought with them was not made of steel, but was microscopic. Diseases like smallpox, measles, and influenza, to which the indigenous peoples of the Americas had no immunity, swept through the population in devastating waves. Some historians estimate that up to 90% of the Maya population perished from these diseases within the first century of contact. Entire cities were emptied, and the social fabric of their society was torn apart. This demographic catastrophe weakened the Maya kingdoms immeasurably, making sustained resistance increasingly difficult. Despite the overwhelming odds, the Maya spirit of defiance never truly died. The Spanish strategy became one of divide and conquer. They exploited the existing rivalries between different Maya kingdoms, forging alliances with some groups to help them subdue others. For instance, the Zhou Maya of Mani, longtime rivals of the Kokam of Sotuta, allied with the Spanish, hoping to gain an advantage. This internal conflict was a tragic feature of the conquest, as Maya fought against Maya, hastening their collective downfall. One by one, the kingdoms of the Yucatan Peninsula fell under Spanish control. Yet, even after a city was conquered, resistance continued. Uprisings and rebellions were common, as the Maya chafed under the oppressive Spanish colonial system, which imposed forced labor and a new religion. The most famous of these revolts was the Great Maya Revolt of 1546, which saw a coalition of Eastern Maya kingdoms rise up in a coordinated effort to drive the Spanish out of the peninsula for good. Although it was ultimately crushed with extreme brutality, it demonstrated the unyielding will of the Maya to remain free. As the decades turned into more than a century, Spanish control solidified over the northern Yucatan. But deep in the jungles of the Petén Basin, in modern-day Guatemala, one kingdom held out, a beacon of independence. This was the kingdom of the Itza Maya, with their magnificent capital, Najpitén, built on an island in Lake Petén Itza. Protected by the lake and the dense, unforgiving rainforest, Najpitén became a refuge for Maya who refused to submit to Spanish rule. For over 150 years, it remained the last bastion of traditional Maya civilization, a living link to the glorious past of Tikal and Calakmul. The Itza kings, known as the Kan Ike, were fully aware of the Spanish presence and even engaged in occasional diplomacy, but they fiercely guarded their sovereignty. They maintained their religious practices, their political structure, and their way of life, an island of Maya identity in a sea of colonial change. They were a symbol of defiance, a constant reminder that the conquest was not yet complete. But by the late 17th century, the Spanish could no longer tolerate this pocket of independence. In 1697, a massive final assault was launched. Led by Martin de Ursu y Arizmendi, Spanish troops marched on the lake, constructing attack boats to cross the water. The Itza warriors, armed with bows and arrows, fought with legendary heroism from their canoes and from the shores of their island city. But they were no match for Spanish cannons and muskets. On March 13, 1697, after a bloody battle, the Spanish stormed Najpitén. The last independent Maya kingdom fell. The 170-year conquest was finally over. The military conquest was accompanied by a cultural one that was, in many ways, even more devastating. Zealous Spanish clergy, believing the Maya sacred books to be works of the devil, sought to eradicate their ancient knowledge. The most infamous act of this cultural destruction occurred in 1562 in the town of Mani. Bishop Diego de Landa, in a grand auto da fe, ordered the burning of countless Maya codices. These folded books, made from bark paper, contained centuries of knowledge on astronomy, mathematics, history, medicine, and religion. With the smoke of those fires, an incalculable treasury of human intellect was lost forever. Only 4 of these precious codices are known to have survived to the present day, leaving us with only a fragmented glimpse into the vast intellectual world of the ancient Maya. The fall of Najpitén and the burning of the codices marked the tragic end of an era. It was the end of the independent Maya kingdoms and the near-total suppression of their written intellectual tradition. But it was not the end of the Maya people. The story of the conquest is one of immense loss and suffering, but it is also a testament to incredible resilience and the enduring strength of a culture that refused to be extinguished. The Maya people survived, adapting and preserving their identity through the colonial period and into the modern day. Join us in our next and final episode as we explore the legacy of the Maya, their survival through centuries of oppression, and their vibrant, living culture in the world today. It's a story of hope and persistence that brings our journey full circle. In this last chapter, Echoes in the Jungle, we'll explore the enduring legacy of this incredible civilization, a story that is far from over. For centuries, the great cities of the Maya lay shrouded in the grip of the jungle, their stone pyramids and grand plazas swallowed by a sea of green. To the outside world, they were a lost civilization, their stories silenced by time. But the Maya people never truly vanished. They endured. Today, millions of Maya descendants continue to live in their ancestral lands, from the Yucatan Peninsula to the highlands of Guatemala and Belize. They carry on the traditions, the culture, and crucially, the languages of their forefathers. The echoes of the past aren't just found in stone. They live and breathe in the vibrant communities that are the heart of the Maya world today. The story of their rediscovery is a dramatic tale in itself. It began in the 19th century, when intrepid explorers like John Lloyd Stephens and Frederick Catherwood ventured deep into the unforgiving jungles of Central America. Imagine their astonishment, hacking through dense vegetation, swatting away insects, only to stumble upon a towering pyramid or a palace facade covered in intricate carvings. Stephens, a gifted writer, and Catherwood, a masterful artist, documented these forgotten wonders. Their books, filled with vivid descriptions and stunningly accurate illustrations, electrified the Western world. For the first time, people in Europe and North America gazed upon the splendor of cities like Copan, Palenque, and Uzmo. The lost cities were lost no more. They were revealed in all their forgotten glory, sparking a wave of curiosity and fascination that continues to this day. These early explorers laid the groundwork for modern archaeology, peeling back the layers of jungle to reveal the secrets beneath. But seeing these cities was one thing. Understanding them was another. The monuments were covered in a complex system of writing, hieroglyphs that remained a profound mystery for over a century. Scholars could decipher the calendar dates and recognize the numbers, but the rest was gibberish. Who were the figures depicted on the stele? What events were being commemorated? The stones were silent witnesses, their stories locked away. The great breakthrough, the modern triumph of Maya studies, has been the cracking of that code. This was not the work of a single person, but a collaborative effort spanning decades, involving brilliant minds from linguistics, archaeology, and art history. Epigraphers like Tatiana Proskuryakov, Yuri Norozov, and later Linda Skeel and David Stewart made pivotal discoveries. Proskuryakov realized that the inscriptions weren't just about gods and astronomy. They were historical records, detailing the lives of kings and queens, their births, their accessions to the throne, their battles, and their deaths. Norozov argued, against fierce opposition, that the glyphs represented phonetic syllables, not just abstract concepts. Bit by bit, the code was broken. The silent stones began to speak. Suddenly, we could read the names of legendary rulers like Pekol the Great of Palenque or Jasa Chan Kawil I of Tikal. We could understand their political alliances, their family dramas, and their military victories. The decipherment of the Maya script has been one of the greatest intellectual achievements of our time. It has transformed our understanding of the Maya, allowing them to tell their own history in their own words, directly from the monuments they carved over 1,000 years ago. It's as if a library of ancient voices, long thought to be silent, has finally been opened for all to hear. This newfound ability to read the past has revolutionized Maya archaeology. Excavations can now be guided by historical texts carved in stone. When archaeologists uncovered the magnificent tomb of Pakol the Great, deep inside the Temple of the Inscriptions at Palenque, they already knew who he was from the glyphs surrounding his sarcophagus. This connection between text and artifact creates a rich, detailed picture of the past that is almost unparalleled in the ancient Americas. We now know that the Maya were not just peaceful astronomer priests, as once thought, but a dynamic and complex society with all the political intrigue, warfare, and human drama you would expect from any great civilization. So, as our series comes to an end, we see that the story of the Maya is a story of resilience, rediscovery, and revelation. It's a journey from lost cities in the jungle to living cultures, from mysterious symbols to eloquent histories. The Maya legacy is not just in the magnificent ruins that dot the landscape, but in the people who carry the torch of their heritage, and in the ongoing work of scholars who continue to listen to the echoes from the past. The jungle still holds secrets, and the stones still have stories to tell. The great Maya civilization is not a closed chapter of history. It's a living narrative that continues to unfold. This incredible journey through the rise and fall and enduring legacy of the ancient Maya It has been a privilege to explore this amazing world with you.